video, I'm going to show you how to design, cut and apply your very own vinyl glass wrap. I'm going to show you the beginning to end process of making an adhesive vinyl glass wrap in particular. However, you could also use this process to create designs for cold cups, for mugs, and also for sublimation wraps or UV DTF wraps if you want to. Keep watching to see how many fails I have so you can avoid all of the mistakes that I make. Okay, let's get going. First, I'm going to measure the glass I'm using. This one does have a handle, so I'm just measuring around that rather than trying to place a design underneath it. Obviously, if you're sublimating and you're using drinkware with a handle, you will have to take this into account. If you want to use a cup like this that's tapered, then there are blank templates online like this one from Kayla Makes, or there's also a few different ones on Creative Fabrica too. Then once I've done that, I'm just going to create a template on Cricut. So I'm just changing to inches and my glass is 8 by 5. And then I'll also change the DPI to 300 so that it's better quality. And so you could use pre-made elements from somewhere like Creative Fabrica, or you could draw your own. But the reason I'm using Cricut is that they have lots of really nice elements that you can change the colours on, and I'll show you why that's important in a moment. You can also use the elements for commercial purposes too if you want to think about selling your wrap designs. I've decided to do a spring theme wrap, so I'm just looking for spring elements in this section. I'm choosing designs that are like 3 colours maximum because although this chick is cute, having to layer that many colours is way too complicated. And I want to make my life as easy as possible but also have a really nice design. I like these bunnies, but again, I don't want to have to cut too many colours, so I'm going to change the white one to the same colour as the other one's ears. And then I only have to use 3 colours to do both of them. And that's why it really helps to be able to change each bit of the element like you can do here on Cricut. If you need some inspiration, take a look at other glass wraps to see how they are designed. You can see with a lot of the ones that you could use for a vinyl wrap, they're actually fairly simple and only have a few different elements. So bearing that in mind, I'm going to get rid of a couple of my elements and then just repeat the ones I have across the wrap. So if you're doing a pattern like this with a few different elements, you want to make sure that you don't have 2 of the same thing side by side on either side of the design, because remember it is going to wrap around the glass. And then try not to have 2 colours exactly the same as well if you're doing multicoloured like this. Then I'm just popping some wording in the middle and adding an offset. Then I think it needs something extra in the dead space, so I'll add a few little Easter eggs in there. And then I'm going to make one of the colours a bit darker so that it pops a little more. And I'll make the bunny features that same colour so that again I have less layers to cut. So when I select it all, you can see there it says there are 5 different colours, but actually I'm not counting the white, and then the second and third there I'm going to combine as one. So I will only have to do 3 layers of colours. If you are a beginner, I would recommend only doing about 3 layers maximum while you get the hang of it. Before I download this, I'm actually going to get rid of the wording, as I think I'll add that in Design Space with a font that I have on my computer that I want to use. And I just want to think ahead about which layer is going to be added when. So the darkest one will be added last, as that has the bunny features. But then if I add the lightest one first, then the middle of those flowers is going to be underneath, and so is that bunny's ears. So if I change the flower middle to the darker colour, and then I'm just going to make the bunny's ears all the same colour. So now I can add the lightest colour as the first layer, the medium colour as the second layer, and then the darkest layer as the third one. You can of course separate different sections of the same colour within Design Space, so you don't have to do this, but again, this just makes life easier, especially if you're thinking of selling them as well. So now I'm happy with the design, I'm going to download as an SVG and upload to Design Space. Then I'm hiding the whites of the Easter egg first, so I don't have to have that as one of my colours. Then I'm ungrouping and selecting all of the darker pink and welding those elements together. Then I'm doing the same with the lighter pink. And then you can hide those both and select the remaining ones to weld all of those together too. I'm now adding my wording using a font from my system fonts and minimizing the line space, and then choosing which layer I want it to match. You could also add a completely different colour here if you want to. If you're not matching it to another colour, then you will want to weld the wording together here if you're using a script font to make sure there are no line cuts in between each letter. but if you are going to match it to an existing colour, you can weld it together with that layer or combine it like I've done here so that you can go back and change it if you need to. You could also try out different colour combinations here as well if you're not 100% which vinyl colours you would like to go for. I'm just sticking with the pinks and burgundy however. So once I'm ready, I'm hitting make, trimming each roll down to the right size and cutting each layer on my Cricut machine using the vinyl cut setting. I'll just cut these pieces off and save them as scraps. Then I'm going to weed each layer. So this one was fairly easy and there wasn't much weeding to do other than in between the letters. This one, on the other hand, this is where my fails started basically. So I hadn't anticipated how small those little pieces of the egg would be at the top and bottom of the design. So they were really hard to weed at this size. And if I had thought about that, I probably would have looked for a different design that had larger segments. I got there in the end though, but they were even a bit tricky to do on this burgundy layer as well. And then the whiskers for the rabbit were also way too thin and I just couldn't get them out very easily. So I decided to give up completely on those and have a rabbit without whiskers. And on reflection, I wish I had just done both rabbits the same with the cheeks and ears, but then swapped the colours around so they looked a little different. Then I usually will add my layers to the glass one by one rather than adding it all to the backing paper and then transferring it. However, as I have never used this type of glass before, I wanted to apply the design all as one transfer. So here was my next fail. The light pink layer needs to be the bottom layer, but I haven't left enough backing paper to add the dark layer on top of that. So what I had to do is manually add the cheeks and ears to the light pink rabbit head and then add the light pink on top of the dark pink. So luckily that did all work out fine and I applied the rest to the larger backing sheet and ended up with my two layers together. Or did it work out all fine? No is the answer. I went to apply the third layer, but because I hadn't put the light pink rabbit heads in the right place, the burgundy features were then not in the right place either. So ordinarily I could have just applied the third layer, then flipped it over, removed the backing paper and applied it straight to the glass. But because it wasn't lined up properly, I had to add the other elements to the backing paper, manually add those features on the left and then move the tape and apply the bits on the right. And then you might want to cut it down as well so there isn't as much transfer tape and it fits on your glass a bit neater. It is easier to do this with the backing paper on actually. I think I was a bit stressed by this point and so I decided to do it the hard way. And then my last fail, as I was lining it up with the glass, I accidentally touched some of the vinyl underneath and ripped it. And then also I took a bit of that pesky Easter egg off as well. So I had to add those back on, which is really not very easy when the transfer tape is this sticky. So just to summarize my mistakes, don't use designs that are too small or thin. Make sure your bottom layer has enough paper to hold the whole of the design. Make sure you properly place your elements when you are layering and don't touch the vinyl as you're applying it. Do better than me, basically. After that though, I'm glad to say it was a breeze. This glass is actually so easy to apply to, much easier than round ones in fact. But also because the edges are curved like that, the vinyl goes on really smoothly around them. So I was really happy with that. It was just by chance that the wording fit within one of the sides. So when I'm designing for this glass again in future, I will bear that in mind. And it could also probably have done with being a little bit higher. But other than that, I'm really pleased with it. A fun pink Easter design, and it didn't take too long to make at all, despite all of my fails. I hope you found that helpful. Let me know in the comments what kind of glass wrap you're going to make, and follow for more videos like this in future.